about trust. When did you start writing it?
It was a couple years ago. I had some ideas around this, and yeah, just started, and it's obviously turned out to be quite timely, as we have a lot of issues around trust in society, and I want to encourage people to let's get back to a society of trust.
It's funny. Carol and I spent a lot of time talking about this ahead of the interview, because Wikipedia sort of seems, and look, it's had its challenges, no question, it's had its controversies, but for things that are online, it's kind of this weird utopia in the sense that...
It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. I mean, we know anonymous people online oftentimes are full of vitriol and hate. We can see that even when people use their names on social media platforms. We lock our doors when we leave the house. Why does trust work on Wikipedia, but kind of seems like nowhere else right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, one of the 7 rules of trust that is most meaningful in that regard is purpose. Like, Wikipedia has a very simple purpose, which is to build an encyclopedia, and we make all our decisions around that. And the rules about participation and so forth. And that's very different from social media, where there isn't a clear purpose other than free speech and openness. And therefore, that toxicity really creeps in quite a lot in social media. People say outrageous things because they get rewarded for it. They get more followers, they get more engagement, and the algorithms love that.
We talk about clickbait all the time.
Clickbait all the time. And, that's very different from the world of Wikipedia, where, I mean, thank goodness our headlines are so boring. There's no clickbait. It's like the article on Thomas Jefferson's called Thomas Jefferson, but it does what it says on the tin. That's a very British expression, I'm afraid. But yeah, I mean, I do think that having a simple purpose is a part of what keeps us focused and keeps our community focused. How
do you describe facts? Or how do you determine facts? And I am amazed I've been doing this a few years, and I felt like when I started, it was very clear. Fact versus fiction in terms of reporting and doing stories. And I feel like there's a lot of gray area, and I just feel like a fact is a fact. So how do you guys determine what's a fact in an entry?
Yeah, I mean, we're really old fashioned. Like, what we look for are reliable sources. So we want, sort of academic research or quality newspapers, quality magazines, quality books, really old fashioned. And, the idea that we should treat, the New England Journal of Medicine as the same as social media influence online is obviously just wrong. Like, you really want facts, and that's what people want from Wikipedia. They don't want
sources matter.
Chaos. Sources really matter. Like, having a good quality source is what it's all about.
But why don't sources matter to everybody? And other people will say, okay, I believe this source is reliable. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, we are living in like different worlds.
I think that's a huge problem. I mean, I do think, it's really important. I mean, one of the problems that we've seen is that a lot of the media, in response to the changing and very difficult financial model for journalism, they've chased after really partisan audiences. And so, sometimes you read something and you're like, yeah, that was interesting. That was good, but I'm not sure I got both sides of the story there. I live in the UK, and we have just an example, 2 quality newspapers, The Guardian and The Telegraph, left-leaning, right-leaning. They're both great newspapers, but I often read one and I'm like, and then I go read the other and I'm like, yeah, you probably should have been somewhere in the middle, both of you. And it would have been, I think, a better story had you said, we got one side of the story, but we actually had to go out and find somebody to tell us a little bit about the other side. You can't be too like, the moon is made of rocks, or is it cheese? Who knows? I don't mean that.
Hopefully,
but I mean,
cheese.
Seriously, hopefully cheese. But like, seriously thinking about, like, who are we talking to, and are we getting to the bottom of this?
With media, with trust in media here in the United States declining and having declined over the last few years, in your view, is there something that we can do better, that the media can do better, that it can borrow from what has worked at Wikipedia, what has worked with the methods of trust that you've studied, that can make us build trust again with our audiences?
Yeah, I mean, well, the good news is that the financial press, like Bloomberg, is still among the most trusted. And I think that's because by the mandate of what you're trying to do, informing business people and investors, you kind of have to be like ruthlessly objective. You're not chasing after partisan audiences and things like that.
But and a lot of what we do is data.
Big data. Data is important. Transparency. I think, realistically, one of the things that Wikipedia does that's kind of odd is we'll have at the top of a page, the neutrality of this article has been disputed. And I always,
we've all seen it.
Yeah, we've all seen it. And I always say, I kind of wish sometimes the New York Times would put a banner up just saying, we had a big fight in the newsroom. We weren't quite sure.
So like
but
more
we
how
decided
the sausage
to roll
is made
this,
type
but
of thing.
but here's a little bit of their inside thinking. Like we did want to report this. We're not sure we've got the full story yet.
Right.
Because that pretending to be perfection all the time, people see through that and they know, of course, and I think they're willing to say, yeah, like actually journalism is quite hard, so a little more transparency is always good.